Make sure to subscribe today and make sure you like and make sure you leave your comments and ideas. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Ahmaduhu wa usalli ala Rasulil Kareem. Amma ba'd. Today, as you heard, the fire in Notre Dame and the fire in Al-Aqsa, and it's a very interesting case to look at. And so we're going to look at this case and a few other things that go along with it. Now, we know that they plan to drop Al-Aqsa. We know that they plan to do that. We know that they plan to establish the greater state of Israel. We know that they are trying to get ready for the coming of the Messiah. So these are given things, right? There's no debate about this. Now, when this fire goes on Al-Aqsa, at the same time that the fire is going on and blazing, even though the two fires, one was a small fire in Al-Aqsa and a big fire in Notre Dame, right? What were the purposes and intent behind this? Was this done on purpose? Was this just a mere accident? Right after the election of Netanyahu, right after Trump kind of giving the green light to the Golan Heights, right after Netanyahu suggests that he's going to annex the West Bank, things are speeding up. And so was this a test of some sort? Was this a distraction of some sort? Meaning you have this fire and everyone's looking at this fire and behind the scenes something else is going on. Or was this some sort of test to see how the Muslims would react? And also how the world would react in general. Like if you burned the church, well, what's the Christian reaction? What's the Muslim reaction? Are they trying to see a reaction? Are they trying to see if the reaction would be different than what happened in India in the Babri Masjid situation? What's going on here? What's really the intent? So we're going to look at some Quranic principles to decipher this. But before I do that, I want to talk about the news a little bit. And then we'll look at some interesting things, and inshallah I won't take too much time. So the question is this a test fire, right? You take a gun and you fire the gun, test fire a gun to see if it's working, right? And so is this like a small test of some sort? The other thing that I want to mention is very, very important, that Muslims must keep their eyes on what's happening in the world and what's happening at Al-Aqsa and what's happening particularly with India. We must keep our eyes on this issue. You know what the word Shanghai means? Shanghai was a word used when they would get, they would have long voyages on a ship, right? So you're going to be on a ship for 2 months, 3 months, going from one place to the next place. And you need sailors, you need people to work on the boat. And not a lot of people would sometimes want to go. But they needed a certain amount of crew to make it happen, right? And so the way they would get a person drugged up or drunk or forced or kidnapped and bring them on the ship. This was called Shanghai, right? And then once you're on the ship, you're stuck, right? And this is the example of where we're headed. If we are not careful, we're going to be on that ship. And then we're going to be upset because we don't know what to do now. And really, in some ways, we're already on a ship. We're on the ship of the colonial boat. But now a new boat, the New World Order, is coming. And we're all going to be put onto that boat. There is a way to get off this boat. And that is to live off the grid. But again, that has to be done in a certain way, which I'll talk about at another time. But what I wanted to talk here more about is mentally. Have you been taken for a ride? Have you been fooled? Have you been, bamboozled in a way that you don't even know what's going on? And so we have to have our eyes sharp. And the way to have our eyes sharp is to look at the news from a Quranic perspective. And from the help of the Prophet ﷺ, with the help of the Prophet's prophecies in regards to eschatology, if you combine the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet, and particularly in this case Islamic eschatology, you would be in a far greater place to deal with the situation before you. Now, having said that, let's get to the subject today. Now, what I want from all of you is this. I want you to tell me, what do you think? Is this a test? Is this a deception to do something else, which I'll talk about? Or is this just a mere chance? Are we reading too much into it? Are we like, overly sensitive? So if there's a small fire by accident, we're making a big deal about it. I want you to tell me in the comment section, what do you think it is? But I want you to tell me after we go over particularly the verses of Quran that I'm going to go over, number 1, number 2, the events that I want to talk about. So let's quickly do that, inshallah. So, Jerusalem's revered Al-Aqsa mosque was struck by blaze that broke out the same time Notre Dame was devastated by inferno. So, was this just a mere chance, or did this happen on purpose? I want to know what you guys think, right? So this is one thing. And then, which is very, very interesting, okay? HonestReporting.com or .org, I believe it is. Defending Israel from media bias. This is the purpose. And if you notice, the symbol there is the one eye. You see that? Honest reporting with the one eye. And the one eye further re-emphasized with defending Israel from media bias. Newsweek's false Notre Dame fire / Al-Aqsa mosque link. Newsweek, had a title that brought the two together. This is kind of strange. And I read a lot of tweets of a lot of people saying, this is kind of eerie. Like, this is kind of strange. Like, a mosque and a church on fire at the same time? Like, what's going on? Is it the same agenda that the New Zealand fire, the guy who was pretending to be a white supremacist and, shooting a mosque that used to be a church? Is there a link there? I don't know. Allahu a'lam. Allah knows best. But my eyes are open, right? And we'll look at what the Quran has to give us in terms of guidance for this. So Newsweek's false Notre Dame fire / Al-Aqsa mosque link. And this is with that one eye and defending Israel's media bias, right? So it makes me think, I don't know, does it make you think? But it makes me think that you're trying to actually hide the link, especially when I look at these symbols. So I'm looking at these symbols because, the one eye, the Prophet told us, the Dajjal is going to be one eye. And when you see one eye anywhere, you have to think twice. Like, is this a forecasting, a shadowing, a shadow of something, right? So, okay, so let's continue. But while this fire was going on and everyone was listening to this fire and everyone was talking about this fire, guess what? Israel was attacking Syria. This is not the first time they've done this, but this is the first time they've kind of like done it in this way. Okay, Syria reports Israeli airstrike in military position. What's particularly interesting is Russia did nothing. Okay, and so now that would mean, so the first question is the fire on accident or was it done on purpose? Particularly after I showed you the one eye, thing. Syria reports Israeli airstrike on military position. Okay, Syria media report air defenses activated outside Hama. Syrian opposition claims strikes hit missile development center. Okay, and Russia did nothing, and I'll tell you why. Okay, Israeli Air Force attacked. Okay, we heard that already. So this was the how it looked like before. All these buildings were there, and this is what happened after. They didn't get two of these buildings and some of these buildings over here on the side, but they got the main one. Here's another, I think, picture of the same, right? Israel allegedly informed Russia before launching strike on Syria, right? So whose side is Russia really on, right? Russia cares about its interests, its oil interests in Syria, but it doesn't want to upset Israel or until maybe it's pushed into the corner. And so the sources said that Russia's silence over the attack, as well as another one some 2 weeks ago against the Iranian military. And now this is what they always do, right? They don't say we're attacking Syria. We're attacking the terrorists. We're attacking Iranian positions, right? They have these labels, but you're going into another person's country, right? And going over their airspace, going over Lebanon, coming into Syria, and nothing, right? I mean, just imagine like if another country went over another country's airspace, and they didn't say anything about it, right? So that would be like, let's say, China is going to attack Taiwan, and because there's a conflict there. And so when China goes into Taiwan, that's declaration of war. You can't say that, oh, well, we were just getting those prisoners of war, or we were getting those terrorist groups there. I mean, you come into another person's soil by the fake boundaries we've created, it's going to be a conflict, right? Anyway, sources said that Russia's silence over the attack, as well as another some 2 weeks ago against the Iranian military position near Alpolo, reveals the significant development that has taken place in security coordination between Tel Aviv and Moscow. Okay, Ashraq al-Wasat reported the weekend's Hama attack, which killed Iranian military personnel, served as the first test, another test, to deal. Moscow did not object or criticize it, despite the presence of a base that holds S-300 batteries in its vicinity, they added. So why was Russia quiet about this? Is there some sort of understanding between Russia and Israel now? So, Israel is getting closer to Russia, and so this is also happening. So this is going to be very interesting. I think that Russia will tolerate Israel until, some things happen maybe. Allahu A'lam. The other thing that happened is they converted a masjid in Jerusalem into a bar. So was this the distraction? A 13th century Palestinian mosque has been turned into a nightclub and in northern Israel. Okay, centuries old Palestinian mosque in northern Safed district of Israel has been converted into a bar. Al-Quds al-Arabi reported Wednesday. Al-Ahmar Mosque, Ahmar means red, has been repurposed several times since 1948. First into a Jewish school, then campaign election center, then a clothing shop, and now a bar and a event hall. So, what's going on? Another thing, that while the fire was going on, a big announcement was made, and no one noticed this. And this is not the first time this happened. When if you remember, I'll give you an example, the Monica Lewinsky case that happened with Bill Clinton. When that whole thing came up and became big news, what people stopped reporting about was the conversations that were taking place between Bill Clinton and, at that time, the Palestinian Authority President Yasser Arafat. Okay, so the former EU diplomats and leaders say the bloc should reject U.S. peace plan that does not include Palestinian state. Meaning, they were the whole time, the whole century, everyone was talking about two-state solution. And this new Trump plan that's supposed to be so great is not a two-state solution, it's a one-state solution. Again, for the cause of the greater Israel that they have. The former European prime ministers and foreign minister from Europe, who previously served in high-profile positions in the United Nations, NATO, and the European Union, called Monday, meaning yesterday, on EU to reaffirm its support for the two-state solution and to end the Palestinian conflict. And they also said they disagree with Trump. Was this the news that the fires were there to hide this news? Because when there's some dazzling thing that everyone's looking at, you have to think about, like, okay, they have everyone's attention on this, but what is it that they're trying to hide? Okay, so the other thing that's very interesting is one of the congresswomen, Ocasio-Cortez, says cutting military aid to Israel can be discussed. So she's a congresswoman, right? Freshman Congress Democrat. Ocasio-Cortez says cutting aid to Israel is still on the table. It's on the table, and so you can see this. So, what are some of the Quranic lessons that are here? Number one, I see a lot of Muslims fall into this issue, and it has to be remembered. that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and I'm not going to discuss the whole ayah, just one part of the ayah here, which is in the middle. تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. You think and you see and it appears to you that they're all together. وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. But the truth is, their hearts are dispersed. They're not together. They are very not together. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. This is because they're people that don't have aql. Aql means to restrain yourself. They all have their own interests. They all have their own priorities, right? They agree on some basic principle, right? We cannot let Islam exist as a way of life, particularly when it comes to the socio-political economic system. تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا. You see everyone standing up against that. But قُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. Their hearts are divided. They have different opinions, different interests, different priorities, different fears, different agendas, different alignments, different alliances. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَوْمٌ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ. This is because they don't have aql in terms of control. Okay, so this is one thing. I sometimes feel Muslims talk about, the world, right? As if it's like one entity and they all think alike and they're all together. And no, this is not right. They're not all together. And they were not all together in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Asarrun najwa. Do they do plotting and planning? They do plotting and planning. Makaru wa makar Allah wallahu khairul makirin. Then another verse of the Quran, very important. هُوَ الَّذِي كَفَّ أَيْدِيَهُمْ عَنْكُمْ. He is the one, Allah is the one who kept their hands away from you. وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ عَنْهُمْ. And your hands from them, right? And this is repeated in more than one place. Sunnatullah. Allah starts by this. This is the sunnah of Allah. This is how Allah does things. الَّتِي قَدْ خَلَتْ مِنْ قَبْلِ وَلَنْ تَجِدَ سُنَّةَ اللَّهِ تَبْدِيلًا. Allah's ways don't change. And in the same way here, one of those sunnahs is هُوَ الَّذِي كَفَّ أَيْدِيَهُمْ عَنْكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ عَنْهُمْ. Allah kept their hands away from you and your hands away from them. In this case, it was referring to Makkah, so it says بِبَطْنِ Makkah, in the heart of Makkah. Okay. Now, this same idea is mentioned again in Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, as soon as this verse comes up, وَلَوْلَا دَفَ اللَّهَ النَّاسِ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضُ. If Allah did not push one people against another people, meaning there will never be one thought always. Even within that one thought, there will be other forces. There's not one force, there's many forces, right? لَوْلَا دَفَ اللَّهَ النَّاسَ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضُ. If Allah did not have one group against another group, there would have been fasad, because then there would be only one in power. But since there's no such thing as unipower, there will always be by power or more. Okay? وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. But Allah has mercy and fadl over all of mankind. And this is for the benefit of all mankind, that there's not one power as such. وَلَوْلَا دَفَ اللَّهِ النَّاسِ بَعْضَهُمْ بِبَعْضٍ لَفَسَدَتِ الْأَرْضُ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ ذُو فَضْلٍ عَلَى الْعَالَمِينَ. Now, you have to tell me, was this fire a distraction from that statement of EU, the statement of the Congresswoman, or was it a distraction to attack Syria? Or was this a test fire to see how Muslims would react, and what would be the reaction if something happens to Al-Aqsa? Or is it a combination of all these things? And then I gave you certain rules. Number one, there's no one unity. قُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى. Their hearts are divided, but they look like they're together, but they're actually not together. Okay? And of course, I want to say like, comment, subscribe. That goes without inshallah saying. And then you have, there are times where they plan against you, but their plan backfires or doesn't happen. هُوَ الَّذِي كَفَّ أَيْدِيَهُمْ عَنْكُمْ وَأَيْدِيَكُمْ عَنْهُمْ. Is it possible that they try to put a fire on Al-Aqsa to actually bring it down, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just made it into a small fire that was extinguished quickly compared to Notre Dame? Then they could have said, well, it didn't only happen here, it could have also happened here. I want you to try to use your insight and spirituality and tell me what you think happened, right? Let's do this as an exercise together in the comment section. Again here, تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى, but their hearts are divided. So they're not all together. They do have different agendas, and this is why they're not able to accomplish their goals as quickly as they'd like, because they are divided amongst themselves. And so I will just end here, inshallah ta'ala. And I will just say one more time, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And remember that, I talk about Islamic politics, Khilafah, and Islamic eschatology one day, right? And the next day I talk about general Islam, but sometimes I mix it up a little bit depending upon the subject and what's going on. Like today, I thought because of what happened with Al-Aqsa would be a good day to talk about some of these points in the Quran, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Make sure to subscribe today, and make sure you like, and make sure you leave your comments and ideas. Jazakumullah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
أشهد أن لا